You doing the? Oh, you're not doing the music.
Nope. This is your kitty.
Cool. Awesome. What's up, guys? It's Adam and Scott at the Adam Head and at the Sober Heathen. Coming at you. I'm in Brooklyn right now. I have been keeping an eye out for Spider-Man. I've yet to see him. My daughter keeps asking, so I keep looking. How you doing, Scott?
Doing pretty damn good, dude. Just scarfed some dinner. It's pretty spicy, so that's why the juices are flowing. Also went back to work today, so that's pretty cool. I guess it means money will start flowing again, which is super important these days.
Definitely. We're gonna let this thing roll for just a few minutes and see if anybody else jumps on. If you are out there checking out the live stream, should be rolling on X by now, and you were involved in this post on X that I had earlier today that just seemed to rock everybody's world and kind of go viral. At least for me, I've got less than 1,000 followers, and last time I checked, it had over 6,000 views, I think. So that's like a 600% return on investment there. We're going to kind of address some of those topics. There's way too many people trying to argue and say, I agree, I disagree, you're full of shit. I got tired of responding to everything. So give me a few minutes and we'll kind of talk about everything.
Yeah, we got 8 watching right now, 4 from your feed. So
rock and roll.
Yeah.
So to go off of being effortlessly sober, I counted the number of liquor stores that I walked past today. So I'm staying in downtown Brooklyn, like right smack dab in the middle. I'm teaching an OSHA 30 class down by the river at the Navy, Brooklyn Navy Yard. And it's about a 1.5 mile walk, not too far. I went by almost 30 liquor stores in a 1.5 miles.
Wow.
30. And it surprises me how close to schools they are. Like they're like school here, liquor store here.
Hey, I'd appreciate that. I got to go get my kids, so grab some liquor while I'm on the way.
Right. So yeah, being effortlessly sober, didn't have to call anybody, didn't have to be talked out of not going into one. Somehow managed to make it to my apartment without a bottle. Or my apartment, my hotel room, which I was told that this hotel room I'm in is about the size of the average studio apartment. There's no way I could live in one of these. No way. It's smaller than my daughter's room.
Wow. Well, that's a big city for you. So you walk by all these liquor stores and you don't go and you don't do the typical suggested things that people would suggest to you in treatment, or if you're in the hospital after a rough night of drinking.
Right.
So how is that possible? And how far close to the edge do you think that you are from picking up because you don't do those things?
How is that possible? It's my identity now. Part of my identity, part of who I am. It's not a label. If I had to label it, it would be non-drinker. But part of who I am and what makes me me is that I have incorporated being a non-drinker. So when it comes down to the action, this is what I think a lot of people get confused on. As I say, I'm a non-drinker. They think that I'm putting the blame, the fault of being an alcoholic onto alcohol itself. That's totally not the case. When we're talking about drinking alcohol as a solution to problems, if you're not ingesting the alcohol, then you're not getting in trouble with the alcohol, right? So if I have to define myself by a label, I'm going to define myself by being a non-drinker, not by being an alcoholic. And so that's how I'm able to walk by. I could walk into the liquor stores, which, I mean, that's almost taboo as far as recovery goes in some circles. I do not believe by any stretch of the imagination that if you hang around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. Yeah. You might argue that I need one. I'm going to say no. But that's kind of where I'm coming from. So let me, for those of you who did not see this thing, I'll just read it to you real quick. Let me pull it up here. All right. So actually, I saw this on somebody's post. It's what I started off with. And I've heard this many times and was told that I should never forget this, right? So post starts with, in quotes, I'm an addict. If I forget what I am, I will forget who I am. Close quotes. Completely disagree with that. How depressing. I was reminded of this daily in early sobriety. Teaching people new sobriety to adopt this mentality is setting them up for failure. Imagine reminding yourself daily that you are never more than your worst moments. It doesn't matter what you accomplish, how far you go, how much good, love, or joy you bring to life each day. You are nothing more than an addict. Ever wonder why so many people relapse? They were programmed to by the very institution that is trying to save them. I'm, insert your name, and I'm an addict. Well, what do addicts do? Relapse. And when they do relapse, they're reminded again, you're an addict. You can't think right on your own. Try again, but do it better and try harder this time. Or you just haven't hit rock bottom and suffered bad enough to want to change. If a parent said something like this to a child, they would be investigated for emotional abuse. And yet, in addiction, it seems to be okay. But why? What if we told people who were newly sober to define themselves as a non-drinker? Taught them how to think about life differently, how to believe in their soul again, showed them that deep inside there is a person who needs to be remembered that is not an addict. What if we helped them to rediscover that person and set them free instead of plastering on yet another mask for the soul to have to squint to see through? Get sober, then get free. So get sober, then get free is kind of my philosophy on sobriety and recovery at the moment. It used to be become more, now it's get free, be authentic.
So one of the comments that you got that seemed quite a bit is, calling yourself this is just an admission of who you really are, and it's not a bad thing.
As far as calling yourself an addict, see that's where this. So one of the things that I try to stress is that words have meanings. Okay. We've got to all come to an agreement on what words mean. Right. So one individual commented that he said in a post, I'm an addict. And so I commented back and I said, well, are you sober? Yes, I'm sober. I said, well, if you're sober, how are you an addict? Because by definition, and I'll read it to you from the National Institute on Drug Abuse, addiction is defined as a chronic relapsing disorder, meaning you're continuing to use. So if you are an addict, that means you are still in addiction. So that's my first problem, is that if I'm going to call myself something, why am I going to continue to call myself the exact problem that I say I have gotten over? So if I had cancer, and I hate using this analogy because I do not believe that addiction is a disease the way most people do. If I had cancer and I have been in remission from cancer, there's no sign of cancer in my body. Am I still a cancer patient? Do I still have cancer? I don't believe so. Again, not my favorite analogy to use because I don't believe in the disease model concept the way it's taught in mainstream recovery. To me, what we should be doing is once we get sober, and I make this caveat, this statement all the time, everything that I write about is geared towards the person who is newly sober and is stable. None of what I write about is geared toward the person who is coming out of detox, who's only been sober for a few days. If you have been sober and you're stable enough to function outside of a treatment facility, then I'm writing to that person. Okay. So if you're sober and stable, then we should be at that point trying to find that person inside that was looking to sedate and healing that person so that the rest of this goes away. In my opinion, if you are continually reminding yourself through whatever it is you do for sobriety that I've got to do something so that I don't drink today, then you're really not in recovery. I mean, I guess you're in the process of trying to be recovered, but if you have to work diligently every day to stay sober, then in my opinion, that's not recovered. You're still working on sobriety. And that's hugely controversial statement, hugely controversial. And I understand that. And I'm completely willing to accept any of the fallout behind that. But again, if we go back to words have meanings, then a lot of what is said in recovery circles is circular logic and counterintuitive. If you look at the definition of recovered, what does recovered mean? It means we found something that was lost. And if we look at the definition of alcoholic or addict, it means somebody who continues to use despite negative consequences. So really, if we wanted to be technical about the word, saying I'm a recovered alcoholic means I have found something which was lost, which was using alcohol. I guess you could make the argument that we're assuming that I have recovered the health that alcohol took. But again, that's a lot of assumptions there. But that's not the main point of this conversation. So
Yeah, so we talked about it a little bit before. Going to a bar and somebody that's sitting at the bar having an after work cocktail and call them an alcoholic.
yeah.
And see if that comes across as a negative. You know what I mean? Because it is. And I totally get what these people are trying to say. And I'm not sure if they're trying to convince themselves or it's just groupthink coming out verbally. But there is stigma to it. Nobody's called an alcoholic. You don't call somebody else an alcoholic and be like, ooh, warm and fuzzy feeling.
That's right.
Right. Same thing with addict, and also, I deal with people coming right out of treatment, right out of jail every single day. Do I start with these kind of comments? No, I absolutely do not. I start at a base level, and my job is just to try to point them in a direction that isn't the one that they're currently walking.
Right.
And so this is for the people that have put some time in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's what, and people, I don't know how they can't understand that. They don't want to understand it. They're emotionally attached to these things, this group things, and they can't look past it. If I dare think a different way, I'm going to fail because that's what I've been told. And
Exactly. You've been told that if you don't believe this, then you will not be sober. That even if you stop doing what we tell you to do, even if you don't drink, you're no longer sober, you're a dry drunk. I could get into all the psychology behind the C word, which would get us canceled, that applies to groups. And I'm not saying that 12 steps in AA are that C word, but there is a lot of the same similar psychology that goes on inside of an organization because everybody wants to belong. The only difference is AA is very much a headless organization in that every separate group, every different meeting exists by itself within context. But this is what I don't understand. If we unpack all the beliefs that come out of that come out of what you have to do to be sober and what is taught in the rooms versus what is taught in the big book, they're two different things. We've discussed that at length in the past many times. But here's the thing. My biggest issue is that says in the big book that was written 90 something years ago that science, technology may one day do what we can't do at this point. Science and technology, to me, includes advances in psychology, advances in understanding of how the brain works, how emotions work, how thoughts work. And so if we have this new advancement in science, study of the brain, the study of thoughts and emotions, and we can use that to our benefit, why would we not use the easier, gentler solution than to constantly bang our head into the wall so that we stop drinking? I know that's not the way everybody sees AA. That's the way I personally felt with AA. So, disregard that last statement if you want to. That's my own personal feeling about it. I know not everybody feels that way.
Well, you look at the comment ratio that you have on this post that we're talking about. It's overwhelmingly positive.
Yes.
As somebody that works in the field, who got a certification, who works with professionals, who went to school for a very long time to deal with mental health, I can say with a lot of confidence and that the majority of clients that come in don't get anything from those types of thought processes. In fact, most of them, and people will just say, oh, well, they're not ready. Well, I just had a client come in on his own, addicted to cocaine, came in with his girlfriend. I think I told the story, and he just got out of a treatment, and I was like, ooh, that place sucks. I was there. And the look on her face is like, oh, he wasn't full of shit. This place really does suck. Long story short, dude came and seen me, got some therapy for a couple of weeks, just got a new job. He's making almost 6 figures. And I reach out to him, since the brain thing, it wasn't every single day, but I reach out to him several times a week and ask him how he's doing. And just coming in and getting that, maybe, I don't know, I'm guessing here. I'll have to have him on the podcast maybe, or maybe I'll have to ask him these questions and see if it's okay if I share it. But he came in and he got to see somebody that's been through it and thought like he did and made it through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he got to hear that I'm not a crazy idiot. And that's, and what you're talking about, we can't think for ourselves is what AA programs you to do. And yet you're told that you have to listen to somebody else who apparently can't think for themselves either. It's just it's a snowball. It's a goddamn avalanche.
Yeah.
And again, and I'm not going to speak for Adam, but I think he'll agree. We're not disparaging the success of the people that have used it and have long-term sobriety and living their happiest life. That's not what we're trying to do ever. We know it works for some.
Yeah, the people that come on and say, hey, AA gave me my best life ever. I've been sober X amount of years. I love AA, blah, blah, blah. I would say about 10% of the comments that are like that, stop right there.
Yeah.
Rest, the other 90% of those comments about how wonderful AA is and how wonderful it was for their life, then go on to berate about why my own personal beliefs are wrong. My own personal beliefs are that you're wrong, and I'm not.
Yeah.
What I like to do is have conversations about this because it goes much deeper than the method that you use to get sober. AA is a method. AA is not sobriety. AA is a method to sobriety. Yep. I will go so far as to say that I don't think AA can take you as deep into sobriety as it's possible to go, to what I call effortless sobriety. I'm not saying that I'm the be-all, end-all, some guru that's got it figured out. I've got it figured out for me. And I know that there are other people out there who share the same feelings that I had when I was in treatment and in AA, which is why I post about this stuff, to get that voice heard and let you know, hey, look, you're not alone. You're probably very much in the minority, which is why you're feeling the way you're feeling. But there are other people out there that feel the way you do and have gone on to figure it out and be effortlessly sober without having to do the program that you're kind of being forced into. I was forced into AA for a long time.
Yeah.
And tried it voluntarily for a long time. So I'm not, It's not like I went just stuck my toe in the water and said, "No, too cold. I don't like it."
Yeah, dude. Yeah, exactly. Like, so I wanted to be free, and I thought alcohol was doing that for me for a while. It alleviated some of the anxiety and the thoughts that I had.
Yeah.
It gave me a taste of freedom, and then I became a slave to it.
Yep.
Like, my mind told me I had to have it in order to do anything or to even function at the end.
Absolutely.
So freedom, I got to go to work every day to pay my bills. That's not freedom. That's having a job. That's not freedom.
That's right.
Having to call somebody every night before I do something, to feel like I have to be in a meeting, to feel like I have to, share all these nasty things that I've done in my life. That's not freedom.
Yeah.
That's, and you might have to do that early on. Like I did, and it felt like it helped.
Yes.
Looking back now, it felt like it helped to talk about those things, to address them, so I could start exploring internally, which at the end of the day, for me, is what needed to happen. It needed to be an internal thing, not some other person over here that doesn't know me that I met at a fucking meeting. Yes. I had to get inside and figure out what the fuck was going on and why I was doing these things.
Yes.
And then now we're approaching freedom. Like I talked about it today at work a little bit. I was like, I don't know if they would have told me that I had a cyst, well, originally a tumor in my head. If I would have been at home waiting for surgery, I don't know where my mind would have went. I can't say for certain where my mind would have went. But I was luckily in the hospital, and it never crossed my mind while I was in there that, I need to find a way to drink. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm going to predict the future. But while I was in there, all I could think about was, I just need to survive this. And I need to, I need to be around to do all these things. I've already wasted enough time, those years of drinking. Yeah. And I want to get back to work. I want to, deal with the unpleasant things. I wanted to deal with those things internally, though. I didn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Absolutely know what you mean. Yeah. And I've said it before. I think AA is it's a good place to start if you have no other idea where to start. If you have no idea where to start, it's a good place to start. And I've said this multiple times in the past. Is I think the steps unintentionally, I think by accident, hit on a way into working on internal issues. Just like you said, getting inside, figuring out the issues on your own. I think the first 3 steps of admitting that you don't have control of your life at the moment because of your drinking, finding a higher power if that's important to you. I'm not going to debate that one. That one can get beat black and blue and never ever be done. And then the rest of the steps, in my opinion, are a way for you to start the healing process of your own past behavior versus what your own values are, and getting your current behavior in line with what you value. Okay. And the reason I say it that way is because if you look at the steps, 1, 2, and 3 are about admitting you got a problem and finding a spiritual solution if you want that. The rest of them are all about making yourself feel better by getting your values in line with your behaviors. Okay. So we're told all the time that being an addict, being an alcoholic is not a moral failing. But if you look at the rest of the steps, it's completely a moral program, in my opinion. It's completely about changing your behavior, admitting your past behaviors that were immoral, in your opinion, or the opinion of your higher power, and then constantly taking inventory of your current behaviors and making amends where you need to. Well, what you're doing is you're retraining yourself to behave and live in alignment with what you value. So AA was kind of the modern self-help psychology of the 30s without realizing it. Now we have different names for it. And we have to go through the dogma of the program in order to do those actions, in order to feel better about ourselves. So the steps get your actions in line with your values. They help you to start establishing some spirituality if you want to go that route. And they just get you feeling better about yourself. And that feeling better, that admitting the guilt, we all know that when we admit we're wrong, we admit that guilt, we feel better, we feel the weight off our chest, right? We're not carrying that secret around anymore. That feeling better is the kickstart to the cycle, because then you want to do more to feel better. Eventually, though, it's not just about actions aligning with your values. It's about understanding where your values came from and why do I value what I value. And so then it's about examining your beliefs. And this is what I mean by remembering who you were before you felt the need to sedate who you are. And so once you can dig down deep enough and start seeing that person again and figuring out why they believe what they believe, why they value what they value, and then asking, where did this belief come from? Is this something I truly believe? Is this something that my parents told me I should believe? Is this something that I got from my religious institution? Is this something I picked up in school? Is this something that society told me I should believe? And once you start realizing what really is a belief for you, what you truly believe, then you can really start making some progress, because then those beliefs start influencing your subconscious thoughts. Your subconscious thoughts, your subconscious basically is what gives shape to your thoughts that you have via external stimulus. Something out there in the world happens, I have a thought. I can't control that thought. That thought's just going to happen based off of what my subconscious says should happen as far as the thought goes. Then the thought shows up. My emotions around that thought then color that thought. And depending on the color of that thought determines my actions, my behaviors, is one metaphor to use to look at it. So subconscious beliefs shape the thoughts. How you feel about that thought then influences your behavior. Well, if we get down and we understand what our values are, what our beliefs are, we can then start to influence our subconscious to only give us thoughts that align with our values to begin with. So if we're having thoughts that we don't truly align with because they're coming from beliefs that were never truly ours, there's always this disconnect that we can never get past, but we never really know why. And so this is what I mean by remembering who we are, getting down to the essence of you that makes you, not the you that you think you should be for society.
Yeah, getting in touch internally for sure. Like, if I have to go to a meeting to feel good, then I'm dependent on that meeting. But if I talk, yeah, and so you need to get, like you said, the subconscious needs to be friendlier. You need to be friends with that subconscious.
Absolutely.
That's when the magic happens. Like, and let me tell you what, we're best buddies right fucking now since this brain surgery thing. Like, I'm a pretty great dude right now. Me and my subconscious, you know, we sleep well together at night.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what has to happen. Otherwise, you're just relying on something else externally, and we all know that external things can let us down.
Absolutely.
And because we have no control over that. We have no control over it. Somebody might get a bug up their ass. You know, a loved one might pass. A loved one, might cheat. You know, something could happen. The group could get canceled. You know, I don't want to live on that anymore. I was always living off, what people thought of me. Yeah. And that was a really big thing for me. And clearly now that I talk like this and we have so many, not so many, there's very few, but there's a handful of people that like to chirp at us and call us various things, like stupid.
Yes.
It doesn't today. Yeah, it doesn't affect me like that, because I'm starting to really, the more and more I'm talking and working internally with myself.
Yes.
It started as simple as journaling for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I really got to, like, I go back and then I read what I wrote, on Thursday what I wrote on Monday. I'm like, God damn, you sad motherfucker. What the hell? That wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? And then you can have this dialogue internally with yourself.
Absolutely. So some of the work that I've been doing personally, working with Peter Crone on a lot of things, he has this, it's not a saying, it's you could probably find it on Instagram if you follow him. But we've talked in the past about childhood trauma and how that kind of a lot of things go back to the roots of childhood trauma. And I used to not. It's like childhood trauma, fuck that. I had a perfectly fine childhood. I wasn't beat, nothing, anything like that. Something dawned on me that he touched on a couple days ago. This is as simple as it gets, and in my opinion, very, very profound, because your very first experience of childhood trauma, and I say trauma because what it is you are sacrificing who you are as a child to your parents. Because in a survival mindset, you as a 2, 3, 4-year-old, what you're basically doing is saying, okay, I will behave in the way that I think you want me to behave so that you will provide for me and keep me safe, because I'm only 3. And as you grow throughout your life, that framework basically is there. So it's a difficult subject for me to wrap my head around, because as a traditional family kind of guy, to me that's just raising a child. But I understand it from the energetic level of that's another being who is basically changing who they are to get what they need to survive, and what they are sacrificing is who they might be naturally, who they might be authentically, because they're going to do what they think you want them to do so that you will feed them, clothe them, protect them, and not cast them out into the wild on their own. And that's it from an evolutionary standpoint.
Yeah, so think about, I can just think about when you were talking, I could just think about myself, all the things I used to do as a kid and through life to fit in or to make certain people like me, you know what I mean? And like I had a serious problem with that for a very long time. Like I remember as a little kid, my grandma has a picture of me. Well, she's passed now, but there's a picture of me doing the dishes late at night. I'm up on this stool and it might have been winter. That's why it's dark outside. But I knew if I got up there and did this, she would take a picture. And if she took a picture, she was proud of me. And I remember getting up there. I was in my like little onesie pajamas or whatever. I remember I remember this, and I remember because she took that picture, and it was so important to me that she took that picture. So I guess I get what you're saying. Like the time she didn't take the picture, I felt like I was inadequate, and what I was doing wasn't worthy of that picture being taken. Right. And it was completely innocent. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
It's not like she fucked me up by doing that. Right. But I kind of get what you're saying.
And like I said, I hate to use the word trauma because, again, words have meanings. And for the longest time, we don't associate trauma to that. But to that 3-year-old on a subconscious level, that is trauma. That is damage, because you're sacrificing who you are, even though you're only 3. You're sacrificing who you are to be who you think you have to be in order to survive. Now, I would then go on to say that a healthy parent-child relationship is one that increasingly, as the child ages, the parent reinforces that, hey, look, the rules are here. These are why we have these rules. You have to talk about it and go on to explain, like, look, I'm not telling you that you have to make up your bed and clean your room so that you stay here and I continue to feed you. I'm teaching you these things so you learn some discipline that as you get older, you're able to take care of yourself. You are still unconditionally loved and going to be supported and taken care of no matter what. It doesn't matter how bad you think you've messed up. I will still always love you unconditionally. And as a child is able to understand that as they get older more and more, I think that conversation has to happen. And this is something that I haven't even, like, I've just barely started doing this with my daughter who's 8, because it didn't dawn on me until like a month ago, like, oh, this might be how you kind of fix that trauma before it really manifests into, a 14, 15, 6-year-old who hates you, because that's life. What if we can prevent that?
It's crazy because I'm going to be doing a dive into this in the next couple of weeks, because we have one of my coworkers. I'm drawing a blank on what her prevention lady. She goes to schools and she works with kids in schools, and we threw out the idea that we were going to do some sort of parenting class. And the second day of school, they had referrals coming in from the schools, that these parents need parenting class, right?
Right.
And so I come in today and she's like, hey, I'm glad you're back. Maybe in the next couple of weeks, let's get together about this parenting thing. I'm like, say what now?
Yeah.
I'm
Sorry,
like,
I didn't get that poured out. I forgot.
yeah, I was like, yeah. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I don't know if I'm qualified to do this myself, but yeah, let's get together and put some material together and see what we can come up with.
Right.
So hopefully I'll be able to do a little dive in it. And, I try not to repeat myself, but I'm being optimistic that there's new people listening. And I think one of the great examples that's been given about this thing that you're talking about was from Gabor Mate. And I know I butcher his name every time, but he talks about, like, the child, a form of trauma can be the child asking for a cookie, and the parent says, no, you can't have the cookie. You won't eat dinner then. And so the little child throws a fit because it's expressing itself, because it wanted that damn cookie.
Yeah.
Well, then the child gets punished for acting that way. Yeah. And what the child learns, or can learn, is that showing emotions is bad. So all of a sudden the child's like, I get in trouble when I show my emotions. It's always been negative when I show my emotions. And so they shut it down and they hold it in. And then I use myself as an example. My grandma, again, when things would go wrong and my mom and dad wouldn't show up and they said they're going to, she'd say, just don't think about it. Go play with your toys. Just don't think about it. And so I learned to just not think about it and put those things away. That's trauma, because you're learning to not explore these or express these things that are building up in your heart and mind. But it's innocent. It's not.
Exactly. That is the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around, is it's trauma because it's doing damage to the psyche, but there's no intent, there's no harm meant, there's no malice there, there's no, the parent, the guardian, the grandparent, they think they're helping by saying, you know what, I don't want you to be upset, let's do this instead of saying, I understand that you're upset and it's okay to feel that. And I feel like the generations, as much as we give Gen Z and whatever that next group under them, we give them shit about being soft on emotions, I think in the grand scheme of things, as they mature a little bit, it's for the betterment of society, because they're hopefully not what we would call soft, just saying, hey, that hurts my feelings. Hopefully, as they mature a little bit, they're realizing that it's okay to have feelings and express feelings. And it's okay for you to feel bad because of something. It's okay that you need to take a second, collect yourself, and continue on about your day. What we're in right now is kind of this backswing of, hey, nobody ever talked about emotions. Well, now everything's emotional, so everything's trauma-inducing, so everything requires a timeout. Everybody needs a mental holiday. That's a little too far. I think it's going to eventually kind of swing back to the middle where, hey, look, we understand that you don't feel well. I don't feel well. Something made me mad. Something pissed me off. I'm upset. I'm sad. I'm hurt. And that's okay. Now, take the time you need to process that, sit through it, get yourself collected. When you're ready, let's move on with our business. Let's move on about our day instead of dwelling on it.
Yeah, back in the day, they called those smoke breaks. I'm just guessing. I've never been a smoker.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I'm
yeah.
gonna go have a smoke.
So we used to make this joke all the time. I went to the Air Force Academy. People yelling at you all the time. No problem whatsoever. About 5 years, no, not 5 years. Shortly after I left the academy, the Naval Academy came out with stress cards.
Oh fuck! I remember hearing about that.
They were feeling too stressed out. They could hold up their stress card, and the upperclassmen had to stop yelling at them. Oh, we gave them shit about that for a long time.
I remember hearing about that. Pretty sure my jaw hit the floor.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the post real quick. I want to say this out there. Hopefully, some of the detractors are listening. Nothing that I ever write, any of my opinions, none of them ever imply that because I consider myself effortlessly sober, recovered, that I can go and miraculously drink again. That's something that gets thrown in my face all the time. And I know you've had that thrown in your face as well, Scott. But I understand that my brain doesn't do well with excessive amounts of dopamine. That to me, if we're going to call addiction a disease, or at least alcoholism a disease, because other drugs can be addicting without affecting the dopamine system. If we're going to call alcoholism a disease, it's a dysfunction in the brain reward cascade system and how dopamine and all that stuff works together. And if you have that dysfunction, then any amount of excessive dopamine, whether it's from alcohol or whether it's from pastries, is going to be an issue. That is where the disease lies. And I know that I cannot go out there and drink alcohol again because it's going to start that process again. So I get this all the time. You get your diseases out there in the parking lot doing push-ups. When you come back to drinking, it's going to be like you never left. No, that's not quite right. Is the pathway already there, sitting dormant, waiting on alcohol? Yeah, you could think about it like that. The pathway's already been formed, so it's like a dry riverbed. All you got to do is start adding water to it, and the riverbed will eventually become a river again. We're not having to create those pathways like we did the first time. So yeah, it might be a little bit more quick in the onset to where you got sober from, but you're not going to take one drink and immediately be a full-blown raging alcoholic, in my opinion. Depending on everybody's constitution, it might be, quick compared to somebody else, but it's not like, hey, one drink and, I'm over here in handcuffs.
Yeah, let me make this a super helpful comment that I've also heard to go along with that after saying something like that. Well, then go take a drink and prove it.
Yeah, that's the other one we get, right? Yeah. Take a drink and prove it. Why would I do that?
Go to the bar and prove it.
Yeah.
I don't need to prove it, dumbass. Yeah. I don't need to, like.
Yeah, that's like saying, hey, I used to be suicidal and I used to put a gun in my mouth all the time. Okay, well, you're not anymore. Put a gun in your mouth. Prove it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just ignorant shit. And that's something the person that called you stupid several times a day would say.
It's very true.
And it's quite obvious who's fucking stupid. And I hope he's listening.
But yeah, so there's nothing in anything that I say about addiction, sobriety, recovery ever that assumes I can go back to drinking. What I continue to say is I am free. Like you said earlier, it was a great analogy. I'm going to use this again. I go to work to get money, right? If I had true monetary freedom, financial freedom, I could go do whatever I want and still have money.
Yeah.
Right? So I have freedom from alcohol. I have societal freedom, I guess. So I can go do whatever I want and not have to worry about sobriety. I don't have to do anything to get sobriety.
And anybody can achieve this. How you achieve it, I don't know. because there hasn't been a pathway that's been defined as this is the one.
Yeah. I talk about it all the time, and I think you probably know exactly what I'm about to say. To me, it is all about internal belief and perspective and how you perceive everything. That just my experience so far is that changing how I view things has been the shift in allowing me to do this. And Dr. Wayne Dyer, phenomenal man, very, very famous for saying when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at tend to change, right? So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, I think that's great. When you change the way you look at things, things start to change.
Things you look at start to change.
Yep.
So I mean, it's if you believe that the big book is the gospel, the one and only truth, the only opinion on sobriety and alcoholism, then you're never gonna see anything different. If you believe that it was the only thing available back in the 30s and 40s when it came out, and that we have learned more and experienced more and progressed in terms of medicine and brain health and psychology and neurology and biology, then you're probably going to see some more options out there.
So I'm going to say something controversial, potentially. When I used to talk about religion quite a bit, you know, I would ask people, I'm like, if you were, you know that the Bible is the truth. You know this. Yes, I do. If you were born in Iran, would you think that the Bible was the truth? No, you would probably think the Quran was the truth.
That's right.
So it's the same thing with AA and all these recovery pathways. If you've only been exposed to one, or your sober life has only been exposed to one, the fear, and again, the fear is created from externally, from all these other people saying, if you don't do this, you're going to go to hell. If you don't do this, you're going to relapse. It's the same motto on both things, in my opinion. So fear keeps you in. And if it's fear that has to keep you in, then it's not something worth it. It's just like an abusive relationship. You stay because you're afraid to leave. Nobody wants anybody to do that. Nobody in the right mind would say that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling with it, if A is working for you, then I guess if it's not broken, don't fix it.
You're going to get, we'll get a ton of people that say, no, I stay in AA because I like the community. By all means, fucking stay. Again, what I write to, who I write to, the reason this pisses so many people off is because there are people like me in your meetings who have the exact same thoughts that I do. And when they raise their hand and ask a question about, well, why do we do it this way? They're usually shut down. So they don't ask the questions anymore. Okay. So the post that I wrote that everybody kind of jumped on and either loved or hated is to that person. It's not to the person who loves AA. Now, the people who love AA and have AA as part of their identity, who they are, obviously are going to feel attacked, and that's the ones that come out and do all the name calling and want to just argue. Which I'll be honest with you, there are days that I love to argue. So sometimes I don't take it the wrong way. Sometimes I might just ignore you. Sometimes I might string you on and just keep the argument going. Consider it a character flaw.
Yeah, character flaw, or defending the people that don't think like the group does. You know what I mean? Or giving them, sticking up for the little guy. That's the way I look at it, because people are forced into these things and they think there's no other option. And that's the whole reason why I started talking about this the way that I did. If you go back and you check out my YouTube page, which everybody should, and if everybody on X did, I could get monetized and do even more things to help people. But anyway, some people already think that that's all I do this for is the money, and it's a negative per month. But anyway, you go back and look at my first videos, I was all AA, man. I was all AA.
Even when I think when we first started really talking about a little over a year ago now, I think you were kind of on the tail end of it.
Yeah.
Because there were a few conversations we had, and I mean, yeah, and I was like, I don't know, God, I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, and so you know what started it all? My drift away from AA. Obviously, I had a shitty sponsor that really fucked things up.
Yeah, that's a bad
So
situation.
right, and so what helped too is complete strangers. I did one time. I was like the 12 steps. I don't remember the title of the video, but it's 12 steps explained or revisited, I think is what I called it. And I went in and kind of gave my own, how I looked at the 12 steps and how that helped me get through the 4 treatments that I'd just been in and out of.
Yeah.
And somebody came on and commented, don't you think you should have a little more recovery time before you start redoing the steps? And that comment right there, I was like, fuck you, dude. We went through this whole thing without swearing, and then I swear at the end. It's like, F off, man. It's like, this is what helped me. And and those are the people I'm like, okay, well, how long do I have to be sober in order to have an opinion? Yeah. And they can never give me a fucking answer. And that's where it kind of started to fall apart for me.
Yep. That's about the time that we started talking. Yeah. I remember those. So.
Well, I'm glad that we found each other, my friend. I think we have a pretty good message, and I think, we're not stupid. I think
no. Sticks and stones may break my bones.
Our goal is to help people, not to judge them, and to provide, a different way of thinking, because options.
Yeah, it would be such a boring world if everybody thought the same way.
Yeah. If like you said, science may one day accomplish this, but it hasn't done so yet. I think yet is here, and there are plenty of options.
It's definitely way more options. I think there's way more understanding. My personal belief is that the answer has been here all along, and it's been here for millennia. We have just forgotten it and are now to the point where we're rediscovering it again. But yeah, I mean, I think science will one day be able to go, hey, you know what? That gene, whatever, is kind of fucking up, and that's why you have addiction issues. So we can fix that for you. I don't think it'll be in my lifetime, but I don't think we're too far away.
Yeah, I'm a believer in anything, man. When that guy told me, when I asked him where that cyst was in my brain, and he pointed right here, and then he said, put your finger on the side of your head, and where they would meet in your head, that's where the cyst is.
Yeah.
And that dude cut this thing open, removed a piece of my skull, and dove in there and removed that son-bitch. I'm a believer, man. Anything's possible.
Yeah. Did they ever say, do you remember where he said it was, what the technical word was? Was it eventual?
Nope. I don't remember. I just, I went from scared to horrified when he told me that about where it was. And I saw my buddy this weekend that came to visit me, and I was like, dude, I remember you coming in, and this is before my surgery. I'm like, I remember you coming in and visiting me, but I couldn't tell you what we talked about because my mind was so sideways. I remember him sitting in the chair, and that's it.
I would love to see scans of that if you got them.
I'll see if I can get them. So the hospital that I was in was hacked.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So my doctor, I went and seen him today, and I got cleared to go to work, and then I went to work today, and they still don't have my scans there. So they just got their computers back up like last week or something. The hospital did. So.
Well, I think this has been fun. We're right in an hour. I got to get up early and walk back down for class. I throw this out there. If you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, that's great. I don't care either way. If you want to have conversations or debate stuff on X, let's do it. I'm always open for debate. I will tell you this right now. My comments back, for anybody that's listening that doesn't agree and wants to have conversation on X, my comments back are never, ever meant to be sarcastic. They might be pointed because it's one thing to write eloquently, and it's another thing to have a conversation via text. So don't ever take anything personally. If I ask something, it's like, are you sober? I'm not saying, well, are you sober, you fucking idiot? I'm saying, hey, are you sober? Like literally, I just want to know, are you sober? Are you working a program? Just read it for where the content is, not for the implied emotion you're reading it with. So that's how I read everything. There's a few people out there that I know the emotions that are behind it. So I usually don't respond to those. But if you're responding and you're not point blank attacking, I am more than willing to engage. So I welcome.
Yeah, and with that being said, too, it's an open invite to ever come on and discuss if you disagree, if you want to have a discussion.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to speak for Adam, but I know for me, I'm always willing to learn things, and it's an opportunity to learn and get a perspective. I love talking about religion, but I only do it when you're willing to have a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is something out there. I don't know, but maybe I'm wrong about my thoughts on recovery too. And if maybe you'll convince me, or maybe we'll just walk away feeling the same. I don't know, but the door is open for anybody. I doubt anybody listening that was aggressive on this, but if you are, just shoot me a DM and we can have an adult conversation.
Yeah.
So
that's good, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. It was good chatting again. Hopefully we can do this a little more often and consistently, but
yeah, good to see you. Glad you got the stuff out and letting the hair grow back.
Yeah. Well, I need a front comb over. That's what I need.
We send you some gel.
There we go.
Make it up in the front.
Yeah, that's what I normally do. That's what I do, but the front's gone. So, all right. Well, have a good night, man, and everybody else. Thanks for listening. We got up to 37 tonight. We got 14 people listening from Adam's feed, which is really cool. So, we'll see you guys soon, hopefully.
Adios.
Ta-ta.